So basically, where we left off last time was we were talking about depositing FIT and FICA. And I just did a quick review of that. Olivia, do my lights. Where we always know that we deposit FICA, and FIT together. And then we just did a quick review where in November you get the letter. And it tells you what you're supposed to do next year, and it depends upon how big you are. So obviously, if you're a pretty big company, the IRS wants their money right away, right? So then you're semi-weekly. If you're pretty small, they're like, yeah, you can hold on to it till the 15th of the next month, right? Now, with any good piece of tax law, there's two exceptions to this. And I'm going to show you those in a second. The exceptions are, everybody has to comply with this unless you're really big or really small. Okay, so let's see what that means. If you're really big, which is this first bullet up here, in other words, you owe $100,000 or more, you have 24 hours to get it in the bank. So like when the University of Montana runs payroll, they don't hold on to it, until the next Friday or whatever. They have to get it in the bank to the IRS by the close of the next banking day, right? Because they're huge. We run I think, something like a $30 million payroll. So our liability is probably going to be $6 million. They don't want you holding on to that. They want it by tomorrow. Or if you're really small, do I not have that up here? No. I don't have that up here, but I'm going to tell you the other exception. If you're really small, and that's defined as you owe less than $2,500 in a quarter. So you owe less than $2,500 in a whole quarter. So you're a taco cart that operates outside of DraftWorks on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, and all quarter your payroll taxes only get to $800. You don't even have to deposit every month. You can just hold on to your FICA FIT and send it in when you file your 941. And how often do we file our 941? Quarterly. So that's an exception if you're really small. The IRS will tell you you're monthly, but really if you don't even get to $2,500, you can just hold on to it. What's the danger in that for a small business person? If you owe money and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and you're like, oh, I'm going to pay that with my quarterlies, the problem if you're a small business person is usually your cash flow is pretty tight. It's, in my humble opinion, I would rather see small business people deposit every month, even if they don't have to, just because then they're keeping up with it. Because that can be a lot of money if you're the taco cart, right, to come up with $800 at one time. Okay, second bullet up here. So I'm a brand new employer. I've just gotten an FEIN, and they basically, any new employer for the first year is monthly by default. Unless you're so giant that you get to that $100,000 number, in which case you have 24 hours. I don't think that's going to describe very many brand new businesses. And there's different requirements for agricultural employers and household employers. Okay, so how do we actually physically get our FICA FIT to the IRS? Forever, and I mean, this is what I did for clients and grew up. You got a coupon book, and you colored in the bubbles, and you took them to the bank. You took them out of a booklet, and you took it to the bank with your check, and you waited in line at a federal depository, and they stamped it and gave it back, and that's how you deposited your federal taxes. And there was two federal depositories in Missoula, First Interstate and the old, I can't even remember what it was called, Western Bank or something. Anyways, what we have to do now is deposit electronically. Does anybody know the name of the system we use to deposit electronically? It's called, go ahead. That's a form to get set up with the Social Security Administration. We use something called EFTPS, Electronic Federal Tax Payment System. So what this is, do any of you pay your bills like direct deposit, direct transfer? Right? That's called EFT, electronic fund transfer, isn't it? So like I get my car insurance taken out of my checkbook every month, checking account every month. That's an EFT, an electronic fund transfer. I had to set it up with my insurance agent. They did a dry run, and then they make sure everything goes through. So that's basically what this same system is here. You get a piece of software, you download a piece of software that allows you to transmit electronically from your bank account to the IRS as an employer. And it's free. So almost everybody's on EFTPS right now. And then here's that exception I was talking about, except for if you're so small you only owe $2,500 a quarter, then you can just hold on to it and write a check when you file your 941. But otherwise, everybody's on EFTPS. My kids use something called Vimeo. Anybody heard of that? Where you transfer money between people's checking accounts, bank accounts. Like if you and I gave each other, we both had that app and we both gave each other our bank account information, we could Vimeo each other money. So super charming at Christmas time. I don't really want a gift, just hit my account with a Vimeo. I'm like, really? That is not like working for the mother side of me. I'm going to go buy something and wrap it up. And here's how you enroll in EFTPS. And anytime you see .gov, obviously it's just what it says. It's a governmental website. Okay, and I don't care that you know the difference between this. This is just two different iterations of EFTPS. You have to know what EFTPS is and what it stands for. I don't care if you know about the two different protocols. Okay, so and what we're going to spend the rest of today on then is working on how to actually fill out a Form 941. I think I had asked you each to bring in 2 today. And you were supposed to have the first 2 pages of it, I believe. And we're going to work through looking at some payroll registers and then filling out the 941s. I think I'd also asked you to do all of your homework except for the 941s. Right. And so we're going to put all that together. So you'll do, after we learn how to do the 941s today, you'll finish your homework 941s, and then we'll go over all of it on Thursday. So I just wanted to give you a heads up to kind of get started over the long weekend to get part of your homework done. Does that make sense? So just hold on to it, do the 941s, and then we'll do it all together on Thursday. Okay, so just FYI, this is where you get any forms for those of you that do your tax returns yourself, right? Probably the only thing that holds you up is your American Opportunity Credit or your Lifetime Learning Credit, depending upon how much school you have behind you. You can go and get forms and publications, including instructions, here for anything that you want to do yourself. So rather than go pay H&R Block $80, you know, go and learn how to do the credit form yourself. You're all business people. You can get all the information you need here at irs.gov. Okay, when are these things due? They're due quarterly. And here's the rule. The last day of the month following the close of the quarter. So when does the first quarter of the year end? March 31st. So the first quarter payroll tax returns are due April 30th. Second quarter ends when? So first quarter ends March, second quarter ends June 30th. That one's due. Yeah, this is not a trick question. And isn't there 31 days in July? I think so. So July 31st. The third quarter ends in September. That's due October 31st. And the fourth quarter ends on 12/31. And that's due Jan 31st of the next year. Okay? I will tell you 9 out of 10, not 9 out of 10, but probably 1 out of every 2 students will mix up monthly deposit schedule and due dates for 941. The 941 is not due on the 15th of the month. It's due on the last day of the month following the close of the quarter. That is not the same as the deposit rules for a monthly depositor, is it? Okay. So basically all this is telling us, again, here's that $2,500 number, so I don't even get there all quarter. I use a voucher whenever you see this with taxes, a 941V or a 1040V or a whatever V, that means the voucher that goes with the tax return to make your payment. And if you had printed out all the pages on the 941, that would have been page 4. Just a little voucher. And you clip it out and attach it to the 941 if you're writing a check. Otherwise, you're doing electronic filing for your payment, and then you can also e-file the 941. And again, basically, you just got to go through the IRS website, you get a piece of transmittal software, and you could e-file your 941. This is also probably worth pointing out down here at the bottom. If you make a mistake, basically on any tax return, does that mean the tax police are coming to get you? No, when you find your mistake, all you do is what? Amend your return. Just change it. No big deal. So same with your 1040. If a year from now you're like, oh crap, I forgot to take a deduction for one of my kids, or I forgot to take my American Opportunity credit. Can you go back and get your money back? Sure, you just file a 1040X, an amended return. That's what you do here with the 941 if you find an error. Okay, these are for really small employers. They file a 944. Penalties. What happens if I don't do all this stuff? There's lots and lots and lots of penalties. So the first thing that you should know about penalties, any penalty, like I didn't file on time, I didn't deposit on time, I didn't calculate the correct amount, I didn't send W-2s, I didn't, anything like that, is you're going to be, any back tax you owe is going to accrue penalties and interest. Any penalties that you accrue are also going to accrue interest. And if you're in the dispute with the IRS, like they say that you owe something, you say you don't, and you're in dispute, until it's resolved, the penalties and interest continue to accrue. So, the penalties and interest can be a lot more than the tax in the first place. I've seen that a lot of times. So basically it's for stuff like this, like I didn't file my employment tax returns, my W-2s, I didn't pay all the taxes when they were due. I didn't make timely deposits, like I kept depositing the 20th of each month rather than the 15th. I'm going to get hit with 5 days of late charges every month, aren't I? Not supplying identification, writing bad checks. Who writes a bad check to the IRS? But obviously it does happen. So don't do any of those things, tons of penalties. And I will tell you this is true from a statistical standpoint, but also just from personal observation being in this for years and years. People get into way more trouble with their payroll taxes than they do their income taxes. Why do you think that is? So you guys all work for me. I run payroll. You guys each make $1,000 a week, say. So you each have $50,000 a year jobs, 3, 6, 9 of you in here. So I run a $90,000 gross payroll. Can you just, from what little you know off the top of your head, tell me the bare minimum I'm going to owe off of that? If I just ran a $90,000 gross payroll, what do you know I'm going to owe out of that? How much? What do you know I have to pay out of it? Like that. So what's the percentage of the amount? Right? It's not going to be like $13,500. So I'm like, okay, well, I run payroll every week. I'm a monthly depositor. So I'm like, okay, I really don't have that money right now, but I'm gonna have it by the 15th. The 15th of next month, I've run 4 payrolls. I owe 54 grand, right? Holy crap. So, but instead, I've got a vendor breathing down my lip, my back, or a supplier, so I pay him or her. It's an easy thing to kind of put off because my inventory's got to keep coming in the drawer. I don't have anything to sell, so I got to pay my supplier, and I cannot cut you guys payroll or you're going to quit coming to work. One of those things is kind of easy to put off, but I mean, really, and they'll catch up with you like that. After a quarter, they're going to catch up with you. They're going to come. They're going to lockbox your building. They're going to yellow tape your, lockbox your business, yellow tape your building, and the party's over. Whereas with income taxes, for most of us, if you have a W-2, a lot of what you pay is pay as you go, isn't it? So I will just tell you, I've seen a lot more people get into trouble with payroll taxes than I have income taxes. There's also been cases, this is just to put a little bit of fear into you, even though I don't believe in fear mongering at all, but this is a true statement, is that the courts feel so strongly about this, they're starting to even hold bookkeepers personally responsible for not making payroll deposits. So if you work for me, and I'm like, oh, don't make the 941 deposit, instead you've got to pay our supplier. Really what you should do is say, I'm not going to put my personal assets on the line for you. That's bad cash flow management. Courts in liberal states like California and Delaware have found that she's liable for not making the deposits. So it's really a very big deal. Okay, so what's next, please, is bring out your 941s. And I think I'll just put a picture of one up and we'll look at what it is and then we'll talk about how to fill it out. Okay, so as we saw, it is a quarterly tax return, and the first thing you have to do is fill in the EIN. And how do you get an EIN again? Yeah, you go online and you file a what? Yep, SS4. And the IRS will generate you an EIN, or sometimes it's called an FEIN, Federal Employer ID Number. Okay, here's your name, your trade name if you have one, address, blah, blah, blah. Then over here you tell me what quarter you're reporting for. Then we start answering some, plugging in some numbers. How many employees received wages, tips, or other comp for the pay period? And then we start into the quarterly numbers. Make sure, you guys, 2 things, and it's right here in the title. Every number you put in here is a quarterly number because this is a quarterly report. So it's not per pay period, or it's not per month, or it's not per year. It's quarterly numbers. And secondly, the only data that goes in here is federal taxes. You don't put anything state in here because it's not a state tax return. Okay, so let's start by taking a look at this. Which one do I want to do first? This guy. This is a semi-monthly payroll register. It's for a little drugstore. You can see the FEIN, you can see how often they're paid. I tell you what the 941 deposits were. Don't worry about 940 because that's a whole other tax return. I use the same payroll register for that. And this is the second quarter. So first just take a second and see what you're looking at up here with the payroll register. What is this all showing you? What do you see up here basically? What's it look like? Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically, oh, it's basically your paychecks. Here was your gross. Here's everything I took out, and here's what I cut the check for. Which numbers? Well, go ahead and fill in the top of your you don't have the address, but you can fill in the FEIN and use a pencil, please. Don't ever use a pen on a tax return. Can you see what you're doing without the lights on? You don't have the address, you can just make one up or leave it blank, whatever. Okay, so on the first line, then it asks how many employees worked for me during the second quarter on what date did they give us? Yeah, March. That's for the first quarter, isn't it? Yeah, but we're in the second quarter, so what's the date? June 12th. Okay, so let's say I've had the same 4 people all year. Now I'm on the second line, and Bo, what does that ask me for on the second line? Yes, sir. Wages, tips, and other compensation. Okay, do you think that they want the net or the gross? What in the heck is going on here? Whoa, 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 whoa. We're going to have a crash. What's happening? What's happening? Uh-oh. This is going to crash. Okay, what do you think that number they want on that second line? Gross or net? Gross. Except for now, of course, we can't get to it because we got... Ooh, is this just like a crazy bug? Yeah, but I don't think I can keep up, really.
Might control alt delete.
Huh. So if you guys go on Moodle, that payroll register is there. Why don't you go pull that up on Moodle for me so we can keep moving on this while I get this shut down and restarted. I'm sorry, how do you do that?
If you like go to where the tabs are.
Okay.
Down there by the Internet Explorer.
Okay, right here?
A left or a right click.
Oh my goodness.
You should just kind of like close. Oh, is it?
Hopefully I'm almost there. I think I'm making headway. Okay, so do you guys have the payroll register up? How am I going to calculate the gross for the quarter? What is the gross for one payroll? Yeah, I think that sounds about right, $2,209. So how am I going to get the gross for the quarter? Don't say it out loud, but you know what a quarter is, and you know how often I'm paid, so you should be able to figure it out. Line 2 should be 13,254, right? Right, because I paid 6 times in a quarter, semi-monthly. It's kind of a weird assumption here that I get the same overtime every paycheck, which that's not really realistic, but maybe we just have to practice using something.
So you would take all the payroll flow registers for quarter.
That's exactly what you do. In all reality, on software, you would just run a report that says spit out the quarterly wages. On all reality, on QuickBooks, you would just pay them to actually e-file the IRS. But we're trying to learn how to do things manually in here so that we know how to review the work that the software does. Okay, what does line 3 say, Amanda? Yep, they want to know the federal income tax withheld from wages, tips, and other compensation. And again, how much FIT was withheld for the quarter? Enter that number. And that should be, oops, is that the right one? No. Banner. So 162 times 6. $972. Okay. Now we're going to this one kind of little center section, 5A, B, C, and D. And it wants to know, and then there's column 1 and column 2, right? Take a second, please, and read the different titles for 5A, B, C, and D, and tell me which ones you think we're going to need to put data in. Which 2 do you think we're going to need data in? Kelly? A and C. So go ahead, put in taxable wages. You've already calculated it. Let me ask you a question. Is there ever going to be a difference between line 2 and line 5A and 5C, which are the 2 we're working on right now? Is there ever going to be a difference between the amount that I pay tax on for FIT versus OASCI and HF? If you cap, the numbers are going to be different. If anybody caps. And secondly, stick with me here. I just want to put a little bee in your bonnet. We've talked about this before, and these are going to get more complicated the more we learn. The other reason it would be a different number, you guys, is if I've had some pre-tax withholdings. Like what? What do I get to take money out of my paycheck pre-tax to put away for? Like 401k. So you could have a different number in line 3 because you've got some 401k contributions. And then 5A, somebody capped. And then 5C is all your wages. But this is a super simple example. So go ahead, put the gross wages in, do the multiplication, carry it all out, and I want you to complete then line 5E just using the instructions, and then down to 6, and we'll all meet on line 6. So just carry out the instructions for 5A and C. Do the addition they asked you for in 5E, and then carry it all the way down, please, to line 6, and we'll meet there. Okay, everyone get these numbers? Let's talk about what they are. Josh, if I asked you what this number was, what would you tell me? Yeah, both shares. Good. Amanda, what's this number? Okay, but it'd be more explicit. It's both shares. Yeah? Brooke, what would you describe this number as? Yeah, total FICA, both shares. Olivia, what's this number? I'm sorry, this is supposed to be down on line 6, right? Is that line 6, that 2999.87, right? Okay. What is that? What is that? It's all your taxes, isn't it? That's FICA plus FIT, right? So if I asked you what's this on a test, you would tell me that's my total quarterly liability. Go ahead. 28,000. This is 972, right? Sorry, that's kind of a funny looking 9. That's a funnier looking 9. Okay, did everybody get to that on line 6? Then we have this weird section in here, and everybody teaches 941s differently. I can tell you when you get into any kind of processing this, you're going to have rounding errors because you could see our decimals went out to like 4 or 5 places. So you're going to have to muck around with pennies on these things, which is a colossal pain in the ass, but you just have to do it. Some people will do that mucking around with the pennies here on these next couple on line 7. Current quarters adjustments for fractions of cents. You can do it here. That's fine. I'm going to show you the way that I do it, and then you can choose whichever. So for our purposes here, because I'm the one teaching this, it's not a democracy. I get to tell you how to do it. We're going to just take that number straight down to line 10, which says combine lines 6 through 9. We're not going to do the fraction of cents in this area. Right? Then they want to know in line 11, what are they asking us for there, Olivia? Yep, total deposits. And I gave you that, didn't I? It's on your payroll register. What did I tell you? Yep, and that's the actual cash that I've deposited. So somewhere in there, I've got to give you that information. Line 12, I've either got a balance due or an overpayment. Which has happened? I've actually overpaid by what? 13 cents. If it's anything under $1, just draw a line through that box. So box 13, overpayment. Believe me, you do not want to be dealing with trying to reconcile 13 cents with the IRS. Just let them have it. And conversely, if you owe less than $1, just put a line through it. Because the correspondence is, got your $80 an hour CPA looking at it, believe me, it's not balancing out. Okay, so now we're on the second page, we're on part 2. Don't forget, at the top of part 2, what does it ask you to do first? Yeah, put all your stuff back in there. Name and EIN, right? Then it asks, Or then there's some reading to do. So read that kind of part 2 and tell me what you think's going on here. Basically, you're either what, or what here. You check the first box, you're what? You're that really, really small guy that doesn't even know $2,500. Is that me? No, because I owe $29.99.87. What's if I check the second box? What am I? Monthly, and then what do they want you to tell them? How much did you owe per month? In other words, so they're going to take what you owed per month and compare it to your deposit to make sure you deposited the right amount. Or if you check the last box, what are you? Semi-weekly, and then you've got this whole other thing called Schedule B to fill out, which tells them exactly what day you paid, because it's that Wednesday through Friday by the next Wednesday thing. We're monthly. How are you going to figure the amounts that go in to month 1, 2, and 3? And I know you'd like to say I'm just going to divide by 3, but that's not the answer. Because is it always going to be the same like this, where you've got the same paycheck time after time after time? No. So here we are, part 2. What is that, number 14? And we check the second box, right? And then it wants to know your liability for month 1, 2, and 3, and then it says total, and then it tells you that's got to equal what? Line 10. So I would start by putting in what I know it's got to tie to. What does it have to tie to? 2999.87. So if I'm not going to just let you divide by 3, how are you going to figure out how much they owe for line, or for month 1, 2, and 3? And I'll give you a hint, you need to go back to the payroll register. Yeah, it's semi-monthly. Okay, you're close, but first you've got to figure out what for one payroll. What do you have to figure out for one payroll? Then you can multiply by 2. It's right in the title. They want to know your what? Yeah. So you can't get to the monthly liability till you figured out what? Yeah, the liability for one payroll. How much do I owe for one payroll? The data's right there on the register. FICA, FICA, FIT. Paint me a picture here. Don't make me color in the lines. You need to figure out what my FICA, FICA, FIT is for one payroll, and then you multiply that by how many payrolls are in a month. The reason I'm making you do it this way is because what if they were all different payroll registers? Then you couldn't just divide by 3. So one payroll, FICA plus FICA plus FIT. I see for one payroll $499.98. Times two payrolls in a month, I'm seeing $999.96. And again, this isn't really a very good real life example because of course your 6 payrolls, particularly if you have overtime and hourly people, are going to be different, right? But we're just, one more time.
Ready?
Right, well that's where I'm going to show you this. So some people do that fraction of cents on the front. What do I have to do here? I know that this has to equal line 10, so obviously what do I have to do rounding wise to one of these numbers? Knock off a penny. You know, I don't care which one you do it on. You know, and you can do that up to, 50 or 75 cents, depending on how big your numbers are. And then you go down to part 3. And they want to know if you've stopped paying wages or if you're seasonal. I'm neither of those. Part 4, can I speak to your third-party designee? This means that you hired somebody to do your tax return and you're allowing the IRS to talk to them. Part 5, that's us. We're the paid preparer down at the bottom. Or if it's your business, you're just signing your name here. All right, let's try another one in the last couple minutes, and then hopefully you'll have enough information to do the one that's due for Thursday. Plus, we'll do, did you see I posted the review? Did I not post the review? I'll go do that. And also, if you go to your, to the Cengage Now that you've all registered for, there are, what are those called again? Study tools or, huh? Yeah, there's study tools for each topic. It just does like a little mini quiz, like, do you understand learning objective 1-2? I mean, you don't see that, but that's what it's doing. And you answer a couple questions, they're like, oh, you're good. You've got everything in that part. Otherwise, they're going to give you some more problems to work. Chapter 1, not so much problems, but chapter 2 and 3, there's a lot more numbers. So I would use those as well to review for the test. The test is on Tuesday. It'll be, it'll take you probably a full 90 minutes. Multiple choice, short answer, and a 941. Nothing tricky. Okay, let's do one more payroll register. So you're going to take your next 941 and see if you can just work this on your own. So now I've got another hardware store. I pay monthly. My 941 deposits were $1,508.61. I'm in the third quarter, and again, you're assuming this is the same payroll all 3 months. So this is obviously a bunch of little part-time employees. anybody not get these numbers? So everybody caught that it was monthly, not semi-monthly. Yeah? Okay, so that's key to the whole thing, right? How many times are they paid in a month? If this payroll register is monthly, right? The last one was semi-monthly. I could also on the exam just give you quarterly data. I won't do weekly or biweekly because those change depending on the quarter. Okay, so on the exam, you'll either get quarterly, monthly, or semi-monthly. So you know exactly, don't do any conversion or multiply by 3 or multiply by 6. Okay?
So still where it just have where to find the expense?
Go ahead.
Where'd you get the expense? Like
It wasn't, isn't the fit for one payroll 186?
Yeah, that's so 186.
Yeah. Oh, why am I thinking it up over here? Oh, 1 minute here. Okay, 860, 81, 132. And I had you deposit a really weird amount. How much did I have that they tell you they deposited? 1508. $88.48. Is that what you have for the difference? So is that something they owe me or I owe them? Did I overpay or underpay? I think I overpaid. Isn't this what I was supposed to deposit? And here's what I did. So does it go on line 12 or 13? 13. And then on the back page, which of these 3 boxes am I checking? Yeah. So do I have to do the monthly thing or the Schedule B? Nope. Okay. We will see you on Thursday with your homework ready for Chapter 3. I'll get that review posted. And that's all I know about that. Have a good day. Go ahead. Sure.